Hey Alice, welcome back. You have come at a fortuitous time. I have the one and only Ben Goldberg here with me. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. You are part of the Sky Daddy family.
I am. I work with Mike, Camden, all those guys with Sky Daddy.
Hell yeah. This has been a long time coming, so I'm glad we finally both had time to do
Oh yeah,
this.
we talked at the Sky Daddy Christmas party about
Yeah,
this, so I'm glad it could happen.
absolutely. Young Robot has a show coming up with Tails and Party Girl at the East Room. That's March 14th. I'm not cheating. Um, but yeah, that's going to be a pretty awesome show.
Yeah, come out,
So
support some friends. Independent music.
yeah, that's really important thing to do.
Oh yeah, definitely,
Local community is one of it has to be one of the most important things to do.
definitely.
Like real grassroots, like people that you can like be in person with and like actually physically in location with is that's all we have.
Definitely. I moved down here in 2016 and kind of got into music business. I went to Belmont, graduated from Belmont, and kind of got into music business a little bit, stepped away from it, and now just found a good community of people who are really big in the local community here to Clarksville, tour around all over the place. Good connections with bands that are awesome all over the place too. So it's awesome just to be able to see some good music and celebrate it with some good friends who put it all together.
Yeah, we have like a really awesome scene here. I think in the future they'll look back on this era of Nashville as like one of the big scenes, like England in the 60s, like the rock and roll scene that
Mm-hmm.
came out of there, and then like England again in the 80s with like the dark wave, goth stuff,
Mm-hmm.
like Nashville in this era, I think is going to be legendary.
I think it's a good time for music, besides independent artists being paid. But that aside, people are able to put out their art, create their art, and they're moving to places that have huge art cultures like Nashville, Austin. Austin's huge into
Mm-hmm.
music. Some people down there like claiming it as the new music city. I don't like getting in those label fights. But they're doing awesome stuff there and here. So it's just great to see the era of music that we're in general. Again, besides our artists who need to get paid for their art.
Yeah, it is tough for artists to make money.
Definitely.
Um, like a lot of things, there's just a shrinking middle class
Mm-hmm.
of like it's either you're broke and starving doing what you're doing or like hyper wealthy. It's like there's
Mm-hmm.
less people like middle of the road, it feels like.
Yeah. People feel like they have to give up and get a real job and to make a living and pay their rent. But it's they should be able to make their art.
Yeah.
But it's just we're in that era where things are so accessible and we can get things in a click of a button, and we just are still not yet able to find how to profit off of those things.
Yeah.
Smarter minds are out there than me to actually figure it out, but at least we all are on the same page that something needs to change.
Yeah. It's like I'll see kids come here from California and Chicago and New
Mhm.
York. Like, I'm gonna make it in music, and the people they're looking up to are like regional or national or even like touring the world bands that they're like they made it. And it's like you talk
Mhm.
to those people, it's like I mean, like I can pay my bills,
Mhm.
you
Yeah,
know?
or they break even and they're just happy to have had the
Yeah,
exposure, right?
that's being successful in music these days is
Yeah.
like being able to afford what you're doing.
On my 2 month independently booked tour, I got 100 more followers on Spotify, which
Hell
amounts
yeah.
to 0.0000001% of a penny.
I don't think I've heard your music.
No, I was just making
Oh,
an example. Yeah.
I got you. Yeah, that's what it's like.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. That's what it's like. Yeah, I used to have friends who used to, do that bedroom rap, find
Hmm.
beats online and have fun with it. And I played around with it a little bit, but I've always been more of like the business side. I am musical. I played trumpet, more classically
Oh
trained. So
shit.
like I played trumpet in college and marching band, go Hawks, Iowa Hawkeyes. Um,
I have a soft spot in my heart for brass instruments. I think it's so awesome.
they're so fun. Band was it's the best friends that you really ever make. Going into Iowa in marching band, you go there a week earlier than all the other students, and you have like a band camp. Funny, haha, but it is literally a band camp, and it's just you have friends immediately before you even take your first class. So it's a really fun thing. If people are out there thinking about being continuing music into college, definitely do it. It's an awesome time.
Hell yeah.
Yeah,
So we have a lot to get into.
definitely.
Before we do you want to give Alice a little more of your background? Talk
Yeah,
about yourself a little bit.
definitely. So originally grew up in the Chicago area. Um, Politics has always been a little bit a part of my life. My dad used to work for the government. I have family members who have worked on political campaigns. So always kind of been around my life. Kind of a split household. One of my parents leaned Republican when I was growing up. The other one leaned Democrat growing up. Obviously now with the political spectrum, everything has changed. Um, but so I've always just kind of been around it, and my biggest thing is I really love the election cycle. I always say it's literally reality TV, but it affects your life, and so always just interesting. And my favorite thing to do is just watch reactions, do a lot of research, see statistics on things. So definitely since the even before the 2016 election, I was really getting into looking into more things about politics, more things about policy, and then during the elections, I am always looking at things. I love the maps on election day. Kornacki up there
Oh yeah.
doing the maps, those things. It's just satisfying for like my OCD or whatever people want to call it. Um, but yeah, so that's a little bit about me, my background, and why I like politics. And more personally on me, I'm definitely more of an independent, libertarian leaning. I really enjoy following libertarian leaning podcasters or influencers, some may say, people who are just always talking about um, politics and policy, like I was saying. And I also like listening to things like there's a podcast called Breaking Points, and they have a person who is more liberal leaning and a person who is more conservative leaning, and they have conversations and debate things right there almost every single day. And you're able to see what the both sides are talking about. So I just like hearing both sides, and that's been my whole life. I've always liked to hear both sides of the aisle, which might be why I'm ended up kind of in the middle.
That's the only way to be, and people will call it like fence sitting or
Yeah.
centrist, when it's like, no, you're just trying to put me in a box of like, it would be really convenient if I fit neatly in one
Mm-hmm.
box or the other, wouldn't it? But it's like, are you liberal or conservative? It's like, well, what
Mm-hmm.
issue? What are we talking about? Are we
Yeah.
talking about gun rights? Are we talking about drugs? Like, what are we talking about?
Yeah.
It's like a way
Exactly.
more nuanced thing than just picking a team.
Exactly. But especially with this election, I really thought the most interesting aspect of this election was the Libertarian Party. And I know people always like libertarians, love talking about libertarians, but I'm going to talk about libertarians. And so I do want to give a little backstory on what kind of happened this past year with the Libertarian Party. So there's a caucus in the Libertarian Party called the Mises Caucus. You might have heard of Mises. He was like a financial philosopher in Austria. And honestly, I don't know too much about him. Do your research. These guys really like what Mises has to say. They kind of took over the Libertarian Party, the Libertarian National Committee. And during the early stages before the election, they almost ran this guy named Dave Smith. He's a comedian. Have you ever heard of Dave Smith
Mm-mm.
either? So he's a comedian. He also has a podcast called Part of the Problem. I really enjoyed it leading up to the election and kind of a little bit after the inauguration. Kind of got a little bit gatekeepy and grandstandy. I was right type thing, which I'll get into in a second. But great libertarian viewpoints that he has. I agree with a lot of the things he says. Don't agree with everything. But like I said, they took over the Mises Caucus. Dave Smith was almost picked as the Libertarian candidate. He pulled out for personal reasons. And then they put in this other guy who kind of didn't really fit the complete mold of the libertarians. And so they were in this place where they're like, what do we do? A lot of people don't want to support this guy. So Angela McArdle, who was the libertarian chair, invited both candidates, Vice President Harris and President Trump, to the Libertarian Convention to speak to them. Harris declined. Trump went. Trump went, spoke to them, and they booed a lot of the things he said, probably most of the things he said, but a couple of things they cheered for. The things that they cheered for were promises that he made on the campaign trail for them. Two of those things, two biggest things. Biggest one was a guy named Ross Albright, who I'll get
Oh
into.
yeah, Dread Pirate Roberts.
Exactly.
Yeah, fuck
So
yeah.
let's get into that. So that was literally the biggest win in libertarian history
Yeah.
was Ross Albright getting freed. And so I'll get to that in a second, talk about how the libertarians won the presidency for Trump. So they hear him make that promise. They say, okay, this guy actually has a chance to win. We are always just that third party. We vote for our guy on principle, try to get the 1% to be an official, whatever, blah, blah, blah. They're like, or we can go with this guy who has made a promise to us and that we will hold his feet to the fire. Our current chair has his ear and can talk to him pretty much almost whenever she wants to. So let's go with this guy. If you look at the numbers from previous elections, when Republicans lost, it was always by like 3% or something like that. Not 3%, but like I think it was like whatever the libertarian vote for the libertarian
Mm.
is. They always were like around that loss. But
Libertarians make or break it is
yes, what I'm
okay.
saying is, if you look at it, he won the popular vote because there was such a less of a vote for the libertarian candidate, and they all voted for Trump because of these promises he made. So they have had a huge effect on this election. And just like being on podcasts, going on Rogan, whatever is going to be the future of election cycles now, that's going to be what they do too. You have to go and talk to these other ideas, talk to these other parties, and try to get their vote and get them on your side. If they don't like you, they're going to vote for someone else.
But
If they do like you, they
independent's
will.
scary. How are you going to control the how are you going to control the conversation if they're independent? That's it's scary to go on Rogan.
It is scary to go on Rogan. That's why a lot of people wouldn't go on Rogan. And they saw what happened to Sanjay Gupta when he went on Rogan. You know, he got his foot shoved in his mouth for all the COVID stuff, which ended up being correct for
Yeah,
on Rogan's side versus Sanjay's on CNN's side, uh, which is crazy. But I mean, that's just how it's gonna be. You're
that's
gonna have to. It's like when TV became a thing.
yeah.
When debates were put onto TV, they had to be good looking and had to be able to be well mannered and talk, not just talk well, but like have that whole presentation. Now we're in a whole different cycle. I would say just looking at the two candidates, I think Kamala looks better than Trump looks. He's an older guy. So just off of looks and age and everything like that, she looks better. But in this new age where people actually have to talk and say their ideas, then people are more people aren't watching anymore. It's podcasts. I don't people aren't watching the YouTube video of Rogan or Spotify video of Rogan. They're switching it to the audio mode and
Yep.
have their earpiece in while they work.
Yep. For
So
sure.
it doesn't matter. It all matters about ideas now. People want to hear good ideas, or they just don't like someone and everything they do is
Right. It's
devilry.
a little bit of a popularity
Mm-hmm.
thing, but also like
Mm-hmm.
you have to be able to have a long form discussion
Yeah.
that's not curated, it's not edited, it's just you talking. And that's a really scary thing to do if you're fake as fuck and
Oh
everything you
yeah.
do is super controlled. It's
100%.
like it's not even like just like I think it would have helped Kamala a lot to have gone on Rogan.
I think it would have loosened her up at least. Like she could have totally flubbed up and been done her ha ha, ha, but at least that ha ha would have been like, yeah, this is awkward and I'm not doing very well. But people would be like, okay, that's human right there. You
Just
are
doing it at
actually,
all would have showed a lot
yeah,
of
it showed would have showed
yeah.
guts.
Yep. It's like, what do you, if you're not going to do it, what are you scared of?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like, I don't care what people are blaming Rogan for his scheduling. People are blaming Kamala for just being scared. Like, I don't care. Bottom line is, if she wanted to do it, she could have done it.
Yeah.
She would flew to Houston to be with Beyonce and pay her millions of dollars to be there. I don't know, but
Yeah.
there's a lot of mistakes. She could have had a really good campaign even with that amount of time.
I mean, it's like you have time for like, I don't know, like mainstream media. Like, what's the one? Like,
She had that.
2020. or
Yeah.
not 2020.
It
What is
was
it?
it wasn't it 60 Minutes about they're
60
getting
Minutes.
sued for
That's
that? Yeah.
yeah. It's like if you have time for that,
Or Call Her Daddy. Like you literally went on a podcast that got famous for the Gluck Gluck 3000.
I've never even heard of that. That's kind
It's
of to
a
the point,
blowjob
right?
method.
Yeah.
They got famous for she's doing more interviews. Shout out to Alex Cooper. Good for her. Call Her Daddy is a good podcast, and they do more than just sex stuff now. But it was famous for being a sex podcast, and that's why people listen. My
But
fiance listened to it and told me all about it. Like,
if you
this
got
is what
time
it
for
is.
that and like legacy media, like 60
Mhm,
Minutes, you can make time for
mhm.
something that gets a lot of ears to it, you know?
Yeah,
Like it's a lot of listen time. So it's just
and
a little sus when you don't do it.
it's just lessons learned. Like people know now. Like
Yeah.
what's gonna in 3 years we're gonna figure out what everyone's the new strategy is. You can't use these same people who just failed on this last
Mm.
campaign and was able to get Joe Biden through because he wasn't Trump essentially in 2020. Like
Yeah.
you gotta do something different.
The I was like a Bernie guy in
Mhm.
2016, and this last election I was a RFK guy.
Mhm.
And it's because like they at least, and I don't like really trust either of those people at
Mhm.
all, but they give the impression that they're here for the people.
Yeah.
Whereas like I don't really like that's you don't want to fall into that trap and like believe them. But it's
Mhm.
like at least that's their presentation is they're
Yeah.
trying to help the like everyman.
And that was another big reason Trump won. It was the libertarian and Maha movement. A lot of the Maha movement is libertarian because they want information to be able to make educated
Mm,
decisions on their health. But they all joined together, and Robert F. Kennedy was literally like, "Don't vote for me. But if I'm on your ballot, don't vote for me. Vote
mm.
for Trump." And that's really a coalition building, I guess. Is I don't think it's the best thing for the future of elections. It'll definitely be interesting. It's going to be
Mm.
like Survivor. You have to make alliances to get to
Mm.
the end, right? Whose alliance is going to be
Yeah.
strong enough to get to the
It's
end?
a bunch of Game of Thrones bullshit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But let's get back to Ross
Yeah.
Ulbright.
Mhm.
Ross Ulbright. So, have you read the Manhunt book on
No,
him?
I'm
Very
familiar with
interesting
the Silk
read.
Road, but if you want to
Yeah,
tell Alice a little bit
yeah,
about all that.
yeah. So it's called. There's a book called Manhunt, something like the search for the leader of the Silk Road or the hunt for the leader of the Silk Road, something like that. But it kind of just goes into the whole backstory of why Ross made the Silk Road, how he built it, how it went from just small bags of mushrooms to a worldwide market. And then it goes into depth of the FBI, the IRS, local police, and everything like that, getting involved on the manhunt to figure out who this person is, who Dread Pirate Roberts is, and then on top of that is the fraud and the theft that the FBI agents and some other people who were hunting him did when they stole Bitcoin and other things from the Silk Road once they were able to get access to the whole server. So it's a very cool book if you want whole backstory. Ultimately, the whole overarching headline of Ross Albright is that he was thrown in jail for making a website similar to Amazon, where people who aren't him can put up a marketplace and sell their product and ship it to someone anonymously using Bitcoin at the time, which was like 50 cents or something like that a Bitcoin. And so like people are paying like 23 Bitcoin for a dime bag, like crazy. So it's basically exactly like Amazon, and he wasn't directly selling all these drugs. It was people using his platform to do it. So there's a whole manhunt on him, and they finally get him, and they put him away for life plus 40 years for creating this website. Like no, like they had people at his court hearing who were like parents of kids who overdosed on the drugs that they were getting, which is we can go in the whole libertarian philosophy
Mm.
of drug use and we can't make people not do drugs if they want to do it. It's the whole like,
If people want to ruin their lives,
yeah,
that's their decision.
if one of my best friends is shooting up heroin at their house, this is not my personal belief, but the libertarian belief is they can shoot up that heroin all they want, and I'm not going to stop them unless they ask me to help them, and then I will step in and help them because they're my friend.
Yeah.
But people are allowed to do whatever they want and screw up their lives however they want. Um, and they used that against him for it's like putting Bezos on the stand for selling bad products or something. Like he's not the one selling it. There's other sellers who are selling these fake products or whatever on his site.
And the quiet part is this is all done with Bitcoin,
Mhm.
so the IRS is not getting their money, is the real reason that there's all of this crackdown bullshit on the Silk Road is because it was an
Mhm.
unregulated free market. That's the real reason. But it's
Mhm.
given the mask of like,
The war on drugs was used as the mask to go against this unregulated
yeah,
currency, which put a threat on our economy or whatever they
mm-hmm.
want to say.
Yeah,
And also, to be fair, I'm not a huge Bitcoin person. I don't own any crypto.
yeah, me either.
It's probably nothing I will ever get into unless we
I
are.
think we kind of missed the
Yeah, like
the ship sailed
if I was
already.
10 years old and I was like, I'm gonna put my allowance into Bitcoin, then maybe I'd be like 50% of me is just jealous that I didn't get into it earlier. 25% of me is like, I just don't understand how this is a currency that people are using. And yeah.
Yeah, I don't understand blockchain technology at all,
Good for
but
people who do and want to
yeah,
mess around with it. Like, I don't know. I also am not super into the stock market. It's not super
yeah,
my thing either. It seems kind of like the same thing. It's like guessing
might as well go to
thing.
Vegas.
Yeah. And then
Yeah,
me is like, I've had like my money in financial places where they put it in like mutual funds and everything like that. But like, other than that, like, that's not my area.
mm.
This is not financial advice because I have none. But yeah, so biggest thing for the Libertarian Party was they got Ross Albright out of jail forever. He's going around the world. He was just at the Grand Canyon the other
Hell
day.
yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, so
so
he's already out.
he's out.
That's awesome.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's to me, that's huge.
Yeah,
I'm like, that's a win for America.
definitely. It's definitely, and it's just, and then on top of that, what happens after this election is going to be very interesting with the Libertarian Party because now there's a huge fight of people who don't like that people said in the party said not to vote for their candidate, and there's a fight of saying we. So it's really like, do we want they want to be
Mm,
unified or do they want to be kind of like the carrot for these other parties to come
mm.
to them? But it's kind of hard to do that and have people stay in your party when they could just be like, well, why don't I just join these guys since they're going to vote their
Yeah,
way anyways half the time? So,
it feels like it's the conversation between like the idealist
mm-hmm.
and like people on principle, and then like realist and people
Mm-hmm.
that are focused on results, kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And to be fair, like I don't even think Trump is like a true like Republican in the party. Like people will very much disagree with that and say he's the leader, it's all his thing, it's his ideas, blah blah blah. Like
No,
he
no.
was just kind of a change agent. He would have been like
Yeah.
Bernie. If Bernie would have been able to be successful and didn't get screwed, then like I think it would have been kind of the same thing, different direction, completely obviously, but would have been a change agent, not true to the traditional party values.
Yeah, he's still beholden
Yeah,
to business.
yeah. I'm gonna be also very interested to see if they kind of keep this MAGA train rolling post Trump,
Mm.
like if JD Vance takes up the MAGA mantle or whatever, or if they just are like, okay, that was fun. We did things. Let's
It
move in a different direction.
it's going to be pretty hard to say until we
Yeah.
get there.
And who's going to follow you if you just
Shit,
reject the
dude.
past
The
12
the
years?
time we get to 2028, it's like we it could be a completely different world by then. Like there's no telling what's going
Yeah,
to happen between now and then.
definitely. After that, I was going to talk about Doge. I don't really care about Doge too much.
Doge, like the
Personally, the
department.
Department of Government Efficiency. How do you feel about Doge?
I really don't like Elon.
That's
Um,
fair. I don't think people should.
I like big balls.
Big balls, yeah.
I like what Doge is doing.
Yeah.
If I can separate that from Elon, then
Hmm.
like oh, the government's like being held accountable and we're
Yeah.
exposing government corruption. I don't see how anyone could have an issue with
Yeah.
that.
I'm hoping that it's better than it is bad.
Like the spending, you mean?
Well, I mean, I just mean like what he does. Like obviously
Doge or
Doge
Elon?
and
Okay.
Elon in
Yeah,
general.
sure.
Though Elon and Doge are basically it's nothing that Doge does Elon isn't seeing or
Right.
touching, you know. That's just kind of the guy he is. He needs to see everything and be in there and have his hands on
Yeah,
everything.
I think like to talk about Elon for a second and then come back to Doge. I think he's done some really cool stuff. Um, PayPal, Venmo,
Mm-hmm.
use that all the time.
Yeah.
SpaceX is cool. Like we should definitely be trying to leave Earth.
Mm.
That's like something we're
Yeah.
going to have to do as humanity at some point. Might as well.
People who are all for it now that he's this Elon, they're like, why do we need to leave Earth? Space travel is just for rich billionaires who don't have anything else to do. So it's kind of crazy that
I
that
think
whole change happened.
it's important for humanity as a whole.
Yeah.
Like we need to become an interplanetary species at some point because like a
Mm.
meteor could kill all of us. But if we have, even if it's oligarchs on
Mm.
Mars, at least they weren't destroyed in the blast and
Mm.
humanity can continue, which I think is
Yeah.
a good thing. Um, but for me, Elon is just like he's committing career suicide. Like he's just
Yeah.
it's incredible how unlikable he is, and he has stuck his foot in his mouth and then doubled, tripled, quadrupled down on it time and time again. Um, and like I've known people that didn't like him for years, but for me, and this is a
Mm.
funny thing for it to have like what really got me on the fuck him train was him saying that killing CEOs isn't based, which as a CEO, like, that makes sense. But you could have just not said anything. You could have
Yeah.
just not commented on this.
Yeah. I think that's
Um,
one place that you and I agree is I don't think you should murder people no matter the message.
oh no, I think you should. I
Yeah,
think
that's where I think
oh
we would
okay.
disagree. I don't think we would
Yeah,
disagree there.
I got you. Um, I mean, yeah, there's certainly an argument, right?
Yeah.
Like killing CEOs is not going to change anything. They're going to replace them
Mhm.
with someone, so it doesn't really change anything. I think it's more of a sentiment of justice more than a we're making a change here. It's more of
Mhm.
like a um, holding people accountable kind of
Yeah.
thing. Which I get that it's not CEOs exactly. It's like it's
Mhm.
shareholders. It's the government for allowing this kind of
Mhm.
stuff. But I'm very pro the system. The problem is I have no faith at all in our electoral system, in our judicial
Mhm.
system. I I have completely and utterly given up on it. So to the point where like I don't even know if they count our votes. Like I don't
Yeah.
believe it. Now I could be wrong, but what I'm saying. I'm not saying for sure that we don't have like a democratic
Mhm.
system. I'm saying I don't have any reason to believe that.
Well, it's not. And the system was created when there used to be like 300 people in a town and you would choose your best person, like a person that the Continental Congress during the Civil War literally had people leave to fight in on either side because they were so loyal to their homeland, and for them that was their state.
Mm,
Like even the people who went to fought for the South, fought for the North, like they left to fight for their state, no matter what they thought on the issue or whatever, they were going to fight for them. Now we have a system where someone can lose a Senate race in Nevada, move to Arizona, get residency there, and run for a House seat. They're
mm.
not actually like a person.
They don't represent the
Yeah, they
place.
don't
Yeah.
represent the place, and then it's a big high school popularity contest. Like it's a dem like re- democratically elected republic or whatever they
Yeah, we
call it.
like in a very literal way don't have a democratic
Yeah,
system. But what I mean is like a republic is still in theory a it's not a democracy, but it's a democratic process of our votes count in theory.
mhm.
Like we have a say. It's not a monarch, you
Yeah,
know. We democratically elect officials to represent us. Is
yeah.
what a republic is. I don't have any faith in that.
Yeah.
You can ask anyone, no one thinks that it's not corrupt. Like, whether the question then becomes, is it not corrupt because of media, mind control, like psyop stuff, or is it corrupt because the whole thing is a farce and there is no democratic system? Or is it corrupt because in a federal election, we have the choice of one of two people? So it's like, even though you have a choice, you have the choice between A or B. So
Yeah.
it's like, I just,
I think it's a bit of all of
I think if
that.
we're going to wait for the system to work and for us to like fix it through the correct channels, we're going to be waiting forever.
Mhm.
And looking back historically, it's like violence never solves anything. It's like, okay, pick up a history book. This is what America literally is founded on, is we demand representation by any means
Mhm.
necessary. Um, and I don't like it. I'm not happy about it,
Yeah.
but I only see one path forward. Hopefully things go well for America, regardless of who's in office.
Mhm.
I just don't have any faith in it. And
Yeah.
I'm very like Heemeyer about it, like Killdozer
Mhm.
kind of Malcolm X more than Martin Luther King.
Very fair, very fair.
That's just me.
I mean, yeah, I mean, it's almost, we're at the point where it is kind of like, how do we get out of this? Where do we go from here? Like, right now, we all are pretty much agreeing it's failing.
Mm-hmm.
So, how much of it is able to be salvaged, or how do we find something that will work better?
I think, um,
And we'll never try to find something better because we're scared and we,
yeah, I think the answer is not like I'm not proposing that we overthrow the government. That doesn't work. You're
yeah,
not. Plus, it's impossible. You can't fight. It's not just the U.S. You're fighting the UN. You're
yeah.
fighting AI. You're fighting like fucking drones, right? Like that's not going to happen.
Mhm.
But we can police our government, which is the duty of the people. It's why we have the Second Amendment, is
Mhm.
to keep our politicians honest. They're not going to be honest themselves. We have to keep politicians honest, so they'll keep business fair. It's like this is why I'm a libertarian and not an anarchist, because someone has to police businesses. I do think that there needs to be laws around business practice to make sure that it's always in the benefit of consumers, like
Mhm.
anti-monopoly and that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. But it's our responsibility as citizens to make sure that the government represents our interests, and we haven't done that in a long time. We haven't had a Boston
Mhm.
Tea Party in a really long time.
Yeah, I feel like that's going to be hard to do anyways, just because half a good portion of the country is brainwashed one way, the other portion of the country is brainwashed this way, and they are both hate each other with no
And that's entirely
reason.
intentional.
Yeah.
That's by design that it's like that. It's why it's so important that you and I don't agree about
Mhm.
everything, but here we are having a conversation about it, because ultimately we both want what's good for people.
Mhm.
And I think most people do. Like, I mean, I'm sure it's same for you, but I have tons of friends that disagree with me about most things, but we all want what's good for humanity.
Oh
And
yeah.
we all have, if we don't all get together, we're not, we'll continue to be divided. That's
The
sounded
Benjamin
better in
Franklin
my
way. We
head.
all must hang together, or most assuredly will hang separately.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like because I mean, my family thought I was like a huge Trump supporter back in 2016. And I was definitely listening to more right-leaning podcasts and people and voices, but I really wasn't. I was just getting another side of things. And then one of my family members was like, "Yeah, I really thought you were like really far right." And I was like very confused. I didn't know that you thought that of me. Like I didn't vote this past election, and my only vote for president that was a Republican or Democrat was Rubio in 2016. I went to his one of his rallies down in Franklin, and that was my first and only political rally, and was super cool experience. But after that, I voted Libertarian in the other elections that I voted in. So I just thought that was interesting, just because you can, if you listen to someone or you say just one thing that leans one way, people automatically put you in that pocket.
Yeah, it's really convenient for people to put you
Mhm.
in a box because now they don't have to really deal with you. They can just neatly fit you in this
Mhm.
corner or this corner. It's a prejudice, right?
Yeah.
It's like stereotyping, and instead of like talking to someone as like an
Mhm.
individual with their own ideas, people do it to
Oh
themselves
yeah.
too. It's literally religion. The way politics act is like religion.
Yeah.
Like I just read the Odyssey, and
Mhm.
like the way the Greeks treated the gods is like if you're in Athens, while you have the whole pantheon, you pray to Athena,
Mhm.
you know? And it's kind of like if you're into football, it's like you're with your team, whether they're doing good or
Mhm.
bad. And it's like that's fine when it's football.
Yeah.
It's not okay
Yeah.
when we're talking about
Lives.
lives. Yeah.
Literally lives.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what there, I do kind of wish I would have voted this last election, because my fiance told me like the week before the election that she's never voted. And I was like, I don't have a plan to do it now. So I kind of wish I would have gone just to give her that experience. But I told her, like, even if we did, she would have probably voted for Harris. And if I had to choose just between two, I'd probably vote for Trump. And then I kind of like, she's definitely not a Trump supporter. Her parents are definitely more conservative leaning. And so we don't talk a lot of Trump or Elon or anything kind of like that, because she's getting all the negative news
Hmm.
about things. And I try to explain things lightly, but some people like doesn't always want to hear it or something like that, which is fine. I'm not gonna preach on someone who doesn't want to
That's
preach, especially
that's
if
totally
it's,
healthy.
yeah,
Like
especially
you
if it's
don't have to
my,
agree about everything.
exactly.
It's actually better when you
Yeah,
don't, right?
exactly. And but my point is, I kind of later on we started having a little bit more of a conversation on why we would have voted that way. And I said, well, you would have voted that way for X, Y, and Z reasons, which were obvious. And my main reason was we're looking to buy a house together soon. And we were looking for the past year to look for a house. And last year we were looking at houses, and the we got a house when the rates were like at like 6.5%. And then after we did our initial like pre-approval thing, they started to go up.
Mm.
And eventually it just got high enough where I was like, we just need to stop looking, because we're not gonna be able to afford this. And in my head, I knew, I was figuring Trump was gonna win and rates were gonna go down pretty much immediately. And lo and behold, they did. And so I have this graph that has the average 30-year rate. And so if we're looking at 2019, so like right before COVID, it was around 4%, 3.94%. COVID hit, so it starts to drop 3.1%. COVID year two in 2021, 2.96%. So it went even lower because of everything that's going on. Now things are starting to open up in 2022. It goes from about 3% to 5.34%.
Damn.
2023, 6.81%.
Shit.
2024, 6.72%.
That's from 3 to 5. That's like
Yeah,
huge.
it went from the lowest it's been because of COVID to even higher than the '08 housing crash.
Wow.
It was the highest, I believe it was almost the highest of the 2000. The only higher one was in 2000 when it was 8.05%.
So in theory, that'll drop.
It already has been. It
Okay.
literally went down yesterday. I got an email from my financial person, and she said, "Hey, rates have gone down today even more. Woo!" Because we sent her a house to look at, and
Hmm.
so like they're coming down. And so that was like my main reason. I was like, I'm just thinking about my going forward in my future. And one candidate is saying that she's not going to do anything different. At least that was about the border, but essentially she says she's not going to do anything different. Had a semi plan on giving new home buyers $5,000 which to me just sounded like the price of houses are just going to go up 5,000 more dollars. Like student loans, this is the same thing over and over again. That's the only solution, is to give out free money
It's like
to,
that's not how.
yeah, it's not how it works.
Yeah,
So that was my biggest thing, is just I'm thinking about my future and the immediates of what I'm looking to advance my life with. And that makes the most sense for me. Rates are coming down. They are coming down from the highest since even before the '08 crisis. Like, so that's the biggest reason why if I had to and didn't live in Tennessee and Trump wasn't going to win here anyways, if I was in a swing state, I might probably would have voted for him. And that's big for me to say, because I feel like there's people who I know who would not like that. But
I respect you being brave enough to
yeah.
just be honest about it.
And
Yeah.
I'm the typical white dude, whatever. Of course, I listen to podcasts and everything like that. Like that's what the whole end of the election was about. How Trump got like the bro podcast guys, but
Podcasts are kind of cringe, bro.
they're kind of cringe. I'm gonna watch this back and be like, oh my gosh, that was cringe.
You watch a podcast?
But I mean, it's just I like listening to podcasts because it's something that I can enjoy, that I can relate to. And there's
Yeah.
podcasts about anything. I
I
listen to
was
audiobooks
I was
that
being
way too.
sarcastic,
Yeah.
obviously.
Yeah. I just mean
Yeah.
in general, like,
I listen to a lot of podcasts. I listen to a lot of audiobooks as
yeah,
well. Yeah.
like they're basically just freestyle
Yeah.
audiobooks. And they're great. But yeah, so that was my only chart I brought as the good guest I am.
What we got next?
Next big one. I don't want to talk a lot about tariffs because I know you've talked about
We
tariffs
just
on
did
a
a
previous thing.
It's funny is that was right before they happened. And what
Yeah.
ended up happening with that is it's like, oh, this was a bluff to like,
Yeah.
it's like, that's not, none of us saw that coming. We were
Right.
all wrong about it. And then the video came out after all of that happened.
Mm.
And we were like, well, shit,
Oh
that
shit.
none of us saw that coming.
Disclaimer.
But
No.
it in retrospect,
Yeah.
it's like that's the art of the deal thing is
Yeah.
that's Trump's whole thing with foreign policy too, is like you give a insulting, outrageous proposal that they're just like, wow, fuck you. And then anything you come back with sounds really good compared to what you said initially.
Yeah. I feel like it's been proven even before the Trump administration pointed it out that we are losing the trade. All I heard growing up was China is killing us in trade. Like everyone was afraid of China and their economic power
Mm.
that they had. All the manufacturing was moving over there, blah, blah, blah. Like this isn't a new thing. Nothing I feel like that they're doing right now, someone hasn't already said
Yeah.
needs to change or is happening.
You familiar with Sam Hyde?
No, I don't think so.
Oh man. Okay. I gotta show you something later. We'll talk about that afterwards. But
I do think that the on that we're getting killed with trade is that these fair, equal, reciprocal tariffs that he's saying isn't a bad thing. And people are like it's going to be a tax on the people. Well, it also could be a manufacturing boom for the U.S. There's so many snowballs, and people wanted to say this is going to do this, this is going to do this, but at the act of it is that doesn't it seem fair if Canada is tariffing us over 100% on dairy products that we should just do that too?
I think what it ends up looking like is if we start taxing other companies or other countries the way they tax us, um, it is not going to make the price for consumers go down. What reasonably might happen is that prices go up for consumers. The thing is, though, we've become really used to cheap garbage
Yeah.
being very accessible, which is like it. We don't as consumers we're very used to cheaply manufactured fast production
Yeah.
stuff that we really don't need.
Mhm.
Like, and it's if we're talking about food, like it's killing us. Like,
Yeah.
I fucking hate the FDA. Like, oh, it's FDA approved. It's like,
It's
well,
like,
I like it less now.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
No, like I'm also like I'm with the libertarian standpoint, like tariffs are bad and taxes are bad. And if this is all just a ploy to do what has been happening to get other people to lower their tariffs or whatever, cool. I just think that it has been true, and we're seeing it even more with with the military in other countries, how we're saying we don't want to support military action as much in that area. Now they're like, oh crap, now we should actually have a real military and be ready to defend ourselves. And the fact that you're not able to defend yourselves,
Mm,
you literally a country that is unable to like I understand we went through a whole period of peacetime, but the British used to have the best navy in the world.
mm.
What happened? Why'd you stop building ships?
Yeah,
So it's just kind of the same thing with trade. It's like you want to send your stuff here, but you don't want our products over there. So you're going to tariff them to make it impossible for those products to be sold in your country.
yeah. Um, my understanding is that I was really young when all this happened, so I don't really know a lot about this, but um, Clinton allowed China into the World Trade Federation, where it's like before that it was like y'all use basically slave labor to make your
Mm-hmm.
shit. Like we're not trading with you because that's unethical.
Mm-hmm.
And then they get allowed into trade, and then it's like, well, yeah, no shit, we can't compete with their manufacturing costs.
Yeah,
We shouldn't try to. Why should that be the goal? Is to compete with China's literal slave labor. It's like we shouldn't be trying to compete with that. That's I don't
we
want
shouldn't
that.
deal with
Yeah,
that.
we
And
should.
but that's the free market. Like we figured that out that like Apple was getting phones made by children and people boycotted that. Sure enough, they decide, hey, we're not going to make phones that are built by children anymore.
Yeah,
You
there's
know,
an easy fix to this,
yeah,
and it's like ethical
that's where our
consumerism.
power comes into play. We can
Yeah, vote with your
choose.
wallet.
Yeah, exactly. There's a blackout day on the 28th.
I heard about
Yeah,
this.
people are planning on not spending any money on February 28th.
That's
Yeah,
tomorrow.
I think that's tomorrow.
That
So
will
no one
have
will see this.
Yeah, this
So
will it'll be after this episode comes
yes,
out, but it's tomorrow for
it
us.
is tomorrow for us. I just saw it today, so I thought that was kind of interesting.
Hmm.
I like I said, I just saw it today, so I don't know the exact reasoning behind it, whether it's just like a general population boycott of corporations or whatever. But I mean, that's a way to do things.
Yeah, that is
The most
huge.
powerful way right now to do things.
Yep. Yeah, no, for sure. Um, I have an issue of like looking at the biggest scale things, like, and it's part of that is me being manipulated by
Mm-hmm.
the media. That's like I'm focused on federal elections where I could get involved in local politics
Mm-hmm.
and like something I like reasonably have more influence over.
Mm-hmm.
But it's easier for me to like look at the global issues that I actually have no control over.
Right.
Yeah,
It's like, what's going on? What's the last thing that was passed in Davidson County?
I have
I
no
couldn't
idea.
I couldn't tell
I don't
you.
even know like who represents us right now.
Fair, fair.
Who is the governor?
Like Bill Lee's still the
Billy's
governor.
governor?
Yeah. Then we have Blackburn and what's that guy's name? See, I don't even remember. We always hear Blackburn. She had that dumb commercial where she was holding plates and says, "We're
Yeah.
gonna smash China." It's
Yeah.
like get off my screen. Ban
I,
political ads. Like I don't need to see
yeah.
that.
And pharmaceutical
And
ads.
pharmaceutical ads. Yeah.
Yep.
Get their
Yeah.
influence out of, or even better, have some type of cap on advertising, or have
Mm.
like you can have different tiered advertisers. Like mom and pop shouldn't have to pay the same amount. Maybe they won't get as much airtime. Obviously, they're usually on the local commercials or whatever. Those are cheaper anyways. But like maybe it's less banning those commercials and more of just making the market more fair for people to advertise.
Yeah.
Because it's always like TGI Fridays, like big chains or something like that.
They control all of
Yeah.
the
It's funny, it's all
ads we get.
poison.
Yeah.
An entire industry of commercials and advertisements is
You know what's
poison.
funny too is like the drugs that are legal are like alcohol
Mhm.
and tobacco
They make good money off of
and
those.
sugar, literal poison,
Mhm.
like things that literally poison us in like a very like well documented way. Um, but like cannabis is illegal, mushrooms are illegal. It's like things that like ibogaine. It's like these
Mhm.
things that like very well documented like help people in a holistic way. They're illegal, and the reason for that is because they're beneficial for you. That's why they're illegal.
And they
Because
cut the bottom line of these companies that are competitors.
yeah, have you seen Common Side Effects?
No, I have not.
Oh man, it's uh it's a really funny show. I'll
Hmm.
tell you about it later. But it's basically about this guy finds a miracle mushroom that like cures all illnesses.
Okay.
And the it's a comedy, but like he's like schizo paranoid that the feds are after him, but they actually are. They're actually trying to kill him.
That's
It's
pretty
great.
funny.
What you got next?
Um, we talked about a lot of this stuff. I think we get into the breaking news of today's news. The Epstein Phase 1
Oh yeah.
files came out.
We were talking about this
We
a little
were
bit
talking
before
about
we
that a
started.
little bit earlier. Nothing shocking yet, really. It's all from what I've seen, and I have it downloaded on my phone. It's all like flight logs that we've already kind of seen. It's everything that's kind of came out in the court cases already.
Okay.
And the reasoning for that is apparently the New York office of the FBI is like not cooperating very well with giving documents. That's the rumor that's going on. There's also a rumor of people shredding documents, which there's always a shred the documents rumor going on when it comes to things like these. But apparently, Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, told Kash Patel to give them the thousands of pages of documents that they have by tomorrow morning. So by tomorrow morning, hopefully, we'll have some more information.
Interesting.
Yeah,
I I kind of like him, what I've seen of him.
Cash.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He seems like it's one of those things where it's like I've just been lied to so
Mm-hmm.
much that I am incapable of trusting any
Mm-hmm.
politician. Like there's very, very little like good faith with
Mm-hmm.
me for any of these people. But on the surface, he seems like someone I can get behind.
Yeah.
Like he wants to kind of like cut the legs out from
Yeah.
under.
Well, you know his like background in the FBI, right?
Not really, no. I just seen
He
him like give speeches and when he was sworn
Yeah.
in.
So from things that he said on podcasts and interviews, he was kind of the team that uncovered that the Russia dossier was fake and that Clinton was kind of like a member of like creating it and he was told to like not tell anyone essentially. And
Hmm.
so that put a bad taste in his mouth in the FBI. And so that's kind of like what led to him being outspoken and
Hmm.
want to become the FBI director.
So he can like change it from the
Yeah.
inside. Hmm.
He,
That's
he
a good
his
story.
speech is literally like, and look up more of it. This will be
Yeah.
his own words for sure. Um, but like his own story and his part of his own words is he wants good cops finding the bad guys. He wants cops on the street finding the bad guys, not spying on civilians, not doing this, that, or the other. They are going out there finding bad guys, hunting them down, and putting them away, and making our country safer. And cool. That's what an FBI director should do, I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah. I think that's great for like violent crime. I don't really like there's no such thing as victimless
Mhm.
crime and like I don't think people should be in jail for like
Mhm.
tax evasion or
Yeah.
um the drug thing's weird. It's like
Mhm.
we kind of talked about that a little bit
Yeah.
already, but I don't think that there's okay, here's the thing. Is like I think this is kind of like the libertarian argument, right? Is there's plenty of things that are wrong and bad, but should not be illegal.
Mhm.
It's like a lot of things can be policed socially. Like being an
Hmm.
asshole should not be illegal because
Hmm.
we can police that socially. If someone's a dick, they get a bad reputation and no one wants to hang out with them. That's
Hmm.
that's social policing, right? So the government doesn't need to stick their nose in things that we can handle ourselves. And I
Hmm.
think drugs are kind of like that, where it's like, yes, people who get on harmful substances become a liability to the people around them, which is why you distance yourself
Hmm.
from those people. I don't really see why the government needs to get involved in that. It's like, well, it might lead
Yeah.
to theft and violence. It's like, okay, those are crimes.
Hmm.
Like we can deal with that when that becomes a thing. We already have laws for that. You know,
Yeah, definitely.
that's my stance on it. Is if the government, it's just they ruin everything that they get involved with. So the most that they cannot be involved, they should not be
Yeah.
involved.
I mean, how many times are in your car and you're always kind of looking around to see where a policeman is?
Yeah,
Just for driving your car,
you're not doing
you're
anything.
paranoid
Yeah,
that there's a policeman around, and you going like 5 miles over the speed limit is going to be the end of the world and a $300 ticket or whatever.
yeah.
Like we shouldn't be afraid of it. Serve and protect, not instill fear and take money from, extort.
They actually changed that off of their slogan. Their thing. It's not serve, protect, and serve anymore. It's something else now.
I believe it because a lie.
Because they're like that's actually like that's false. Like, and you can get like
Mhm.
they had some like legal issues with saying protect and serve because that's literally not what they're there to do. They're there to punish wrongdoing.
Mhm.
It's like police are not. Police are maybe preventative with their presence alone, but in action they're not preventative. They're responsive.
Mhm.
You know, it's like you could say they're preventative because you have deterrence, right? But that's the law is a deterrence, not police activity,
Yeah,
right?
the threat of being thrown in jail, right,
Yeah,
is the deterrence.
it's not the officers themselves.
Yeah,
They are what they do in action is responsive to crime. It's not preventative. Yeah.
but hopefully Cash will help the FBI or
Yeah.
do something positive. That's
Yeah.
again all I
I hope
hope is that
so.
people do things positive.
I get nervous about like I don't think like Trump is like he doesn't even drink.
Mhm.
So it's like he doesn't have a nuanced understanding of drugs.
Yeah,
And it's like I don't have any faith that like drug laws are going to get any better,
yeah.
you know? But
I think you said things about marijuana positively in the past.
I know Rogan got him to like talk about considering mushrooms
Yeah.
as well.
Well, because
So
Rogan is all about psychedelics for veterans. He
yeah,
is a huge proponent for psychedelics for veteran therapy and helping with their PTSD and
yep.
other mental issues they have. Which why not try? These guys
Well, there's
went to
plenty
these
of
forever wars for us and put their lives on the line, and now they're screwed up because of it.
yeah. That's where it should start for sure. Is like medical use for veterans.
You'll have immediate lines at the VA ready to sign up for that immediately.
Right. And it's like if this was like a like an experiment we're trying out, you know, maybe that'd be one thing, but it's so well documented
Studied
that
over and over again.
MDMA and mushrooms like really help with PTSD. It's like fix families, like prevent suicide. It's like the fact that we're not doing that in my eyes is a crime.
Maybe RFK will do
Yeah,
something about it, right? That's
yeah.
under his jurisdiction now, right?
That would definitely be nice. Do you consider yourself religious? I'm sorry, that's kind of a wild segue.
No, you're good. Yes, I grew up Methodist.
Okay.
My dad's side of the family is Jewish. So my mom wasn't, and she's more in her religion. So I grew up Methodist, and that's kind of where I like that's like they're very accepting. I do have very liberal leaning social thing like viewpoints like LGBTQ rights and everything like that. Um on the Methodist side actually is very accepting. There's like the Methodist church split like a decade ago. So there's one that's kind of more hardcore, then one that's more accepting, and that's kind of the one that I grew up in and everything like that. So my fiance and I have talked about religion, and she comes from a religious family too. It's just something that we're not super part
Mhm.
of right now, but we do see it in our future because we think it's very good to have when like family building and community building.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. I mean,
Yeah.
there's a lot of practical application
Mhm.
to religion. What is the I'm ignorant about this. What is the Methodist doctrine? Like, do they
No,
believe in hell?
I'm not entirely sure of all that. It's pretty much the most relaxed church I've ever been to. Very open beliefs. Like I remember I went home when Roe v. Wade was overturned, and the Methodist Church put out a statement about it and was basically like, we do value the sanctity of all life. However, we also believe in people's ability to govern over themselves and make their own choices. Do with that as you will, essentially. And so that's something I can appreciate. It's like there's personal beliefs and then there's public beliefs. And that doesn't mean that personal beliefs have to be secret. I can say, hey, I think hypothetically abortion is murder, all of that. But I also think that people have their own situations and own lives, and who am I to tell them what they are to do with it? Like, and that's another kind of more libertarian standpoint too, where I think if you want to do something and you can afford to do something, go ahead and do it. People can get boob jobs or like ab implants or something stupid like that, then whatever. If you can afford to do it, cool, as long as you're a consenting adult and everything like that.
That's exactly my stance on it as well, is I do think that it is a loss of life. Um, like obviously, that's kind of obvious to me, is like
Mm-hmm.
it was there and now it's not. So like that seems like a like something died to me.
Mm-hmm.
Like this cluster of cells is no longer, right? But also I don't see how that affects me in any way or how that's my
Yeah,
business. So I really don't care.
exactly.
And again, like my main thing about that is like, can the government not be involved? Okay, then the government should not be involved.
Exactly. Do they have to make a decision on this? No, they just a bunch of people want to make the
Yeah.
law of the land.
Yeah. Which is like, it's one of those things where I think we need to like the less federal control and the more state control, I think is good. But I do think like it is when it's in the case of like this is federally legal, I think that's a good thing where it's like you have the freedom to get an abortion anywhere. Whereas like if it's like this drug is federally illegal, but you can buy it in some states, like I think
Mhm.
that's bad.
Yeah.
So it's like ultimately whatever leads to the most freedom of the individual, like putting power in the hands of individuals, I
Mhm.
think is a good thing.
I think that's good too. I think if you don't want to make decisions about your own life and health and everything, then why do you want to be part of that? I couldn't even think of a reason why you'd want to be part of a system where people are telling you that you need to do this or you should do this and all of that. Like that's crazy.
Yeah. A lot of people, and this comes back to the religious thing, is like people need framework. And um, it's scary to have to develop your own framework. It's a lot easier to just forfeit your framework to an existing thing, you know?
Yeah, and it's one thing to have your framework. It's another thing to accept that someone else has a different framework. We
Yeah.
are not all the same. We all have different beliefs and thoughts, but I think the majority of us at the end of the day want the same thing. We want to be healthy, we want to be happy. We don't want people to steal from us, hurt us, or any of that stuff. We want to be left alone, or we want to be with our people and people we like to hang out with and have a good time and make a good
Yeah.
living and be able to do fun things, go on vacations, things like that.
Yeah. I've that's something I realized like doing the show is while if you're to get online, it looks like people are real, like there's like a hard line, and some people are on this side of the fence, people are on this side of the fence. Everything's so divided. But realistically, like talking to people in person and having
Mhm.
conversations with people, it's like, no, we actually agree about most things. Like if we want to find something to disagree about, like that's not a bad thing either.
Mhm.
Like there's nothing wrong with that. But like we kind of, for most conversations, you kind of have to like go looking for it.
Mhm.
Like most people agree about most things. We're all on the same
Yeah.
page for the most part.
Or if not, we can have a rational discussion about
Yeah,
what I think and what you think and figure it out.
that's a big part of my framework is everything is on the table, and that's not on the table. Censorship is not on the table.
Yeah.
That is something I'm very dogmatic about, is anti-dogmatism.
There was a interview. Bill Maher had Tom Green on his after show, and they were talking about free speech. And Tom Green's Canadian, and so he was talking about how we have free speech up in Canada too. It's in our charter, blah blah blah. And he's like, Bill Maher's like, oh, that's cool, but are you allowed to do this, this, and this? He's like, well, we do have hate speech laws, like things that no one would ever want to say. Like, if why would you even want to say those things, right? And Mar was like, well, that by definition is not free speech.
Yeah,
Like they're telling you not to say these things. And sure, a lot of the things they're telling you not to say are bad things. But if you don't hear people say those things, you know who you won't know who not to hang out with.
exactly. We need to be able to see the Nazis. We need to be able to see the bigots in the open. That way they don't sneak up on you, right? It's like I would rather know if someone has horrible ideas or not. That way, like, you know,
Yeah.
and it doesn't, it just doesn't do any good to like tell people what they can and can't say, because then they become more radical, and that's a very slippery slope. It's very dangerous. They're seeing this
Definitely.
in the UK right now. Like there's a lot of bad ideas that are getting really strong in Germany and
Mhm.
other parts of the world. And it's like, it's scary because, and it's 100% the government's fault
Mhm.
for like, they're responsible for like radical anti Semitism and all of these like really awful
Yeah.
things,
Well, I
you
saw
know?
this thing about Gen Z, and Gen Z has one of the bigger gaps between men and women, of women voting left and men voting right. And it was like 23 points or something like that, which is crazy. And like people are like, how do we fix one side's like, how do we fix the Gen Z men problem? The other side's, how do we fix the Gen Z women's problem? I will tell you both how to fix them. The right side needs to stop trying to control women, and the left side needs to stop telling young men, especially young white men, that they are the problem. Are the problem because they were born into privilege, and just demean them. That's how you lose people. Like you're either gonna have the people who are like, yes, you're right, I am the problem. I'm gonna support anything you say, or you're gonna push people away. Like I would love to be on your team and like vote ways because it makes life better for people who are marginalized. But I don't want you to also say that I'm the problem when I didn't do anything.
Yeah.
Like I am a child, a grandson of great great grandson of immigrants who came here running away from Nazis, fought for the North in the Civil War. Like I'm here as immigrants who I have no history of like slave ownership or things like that in my family. How am I the problem? I want to be on your team, but you can't demon. And same thing for the other side. Like you have to let people make their own. More women want to have autonomy over their body than want to make abortion illegal. And we need to
Mm.
start listening to everyone.
Yeah.
And I'm out here on my white person privilege. Listen to me. I'm a white guy. We need to listen to more of me. I'm all good with listening to other people, people who are minorities, everything like that. And I agree with a lot of things that they say. Just stop telling us that we're the problem, or you're gonna continue to push us away. And that's going around the country, around the world even more. like look at the German election, the whole east side of Germany voted for the further right party. Why are
Hmm.
they doing that? You're
Because the
demon
government sucks.
Yeah, you're
Yeah.
demonizing these people and putting up propping people up, other people up on a pedestal. Like, and that's not bad. Like, cool. I'm all for people who have been marginalized getting a better shake, getting helped out and everything like that. But you don't have to do that by also putting another group of people down.
Yep. And I think the important thing to realize about all that is it's 100% by design and
Mhm.
intentional.
Yeah.
It's like if you hate women, understand that that is not your idea. You're fucking brainwashed. The same thing if you hate men, you are not an individual. You're not having that thought is implanted into you. And it's like I'm not downplaying traumatic experience,
Mhm.
right? But it's like what I am saying is it's like the way you think is by design. Not you, but
Yeah.
all of these like group thinks and on every side of every issue is it's like the only thing they'll divide us on race, gender, politics, religion, anything that isn't people versus authority, people
Mhm.
versus an oppressive system. That's the one thing they're trying to get us not to look at
Mhm.
by getting us looking at other shit that doesn't matter. And kind of like a side tangent, but like gender is a construct. Race isn't though. Like race is like a thing that exists somehow. Yet gender is more nuanced. But it's like, no, you are a white person. It's like you
Mhm.
are a black person. It's like, where's the science behind that?
Mhm.
Because it's like, I'm pretty sure we're all the human race. I'm pretty sure we all have a little bit of everything. But no, that's like hard line in the
Mhm.
sand. You're this. But yet at the same time, gender is fluid.
Mhm.
You know, it's like like make it make
Yeah.
sense.
Well, that was a big thing in a recent Supreme Court case. There were anti trans laws, and I think in Alabama or something that made it all the way to the Supreme Court. And there was a person arguing in against those laws that were passed. And the biggest thing that came out of argument from the judge that came out of that was it was all about civil rights. Like they're fighting for their civil rights. Great. The biggest thing for civil rights is mutability, the ability to change or not change. So they're like, is being trans mutable or immutable? And they
Hmm.
said it's mutable, which means it can change. And so then the judge was like, that by definition is not for
Oh,
civil rights,
hmm.
which you can agree with or disagree with.
I see what
That
you're
was
saying.
that was
That's
the judge's
interesting.
choice, like exactly like you're saying, how gender is fluid, but being a race isn't. That's why there's anti-discrimination laws for women, for African Americans, for all races of being able to apply for a job and get a job, and you can't be denied because of a race you are, right? It's it's immutable that you are that. Whereas gender being fluid, it is able to
Interesting.
change.
That's
That's again
well, that's a
the
very that's a
Supreme Court's words on the laws that are laid out.
yeah.
And if that needs to change, that's another conversation. I just thought that was interesting
That's
based on what you
very. I
said.
mean, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
That is really
it's
interesting.
very interesting. Definitely worth
Yeah,
a
I'm definitely
Google.
gonna look into that. Um, yeah, I just like I hate when anyone tries to like put me in a box of like one thing or another. It's like I really hate uh people saying that I'm white, where it's like I don't know what you mean by that,
Mhm.
but it sounds really like racist and bigoted when and I know like this is like such a cliche, right? But in my case, it's really true. Like my dad gets money from the government because his family is Cherokee. It's like
Mhm.
stop telling me what my ethnic background is. It's like or like
Mhm.
with Jews, it's like you're white your white like present, what's the word?
Privilege.
It's like while you are from the Middle East, you get the white, yeah, you get the white privilege though, because like you
You're still a
pass
fair
as,
skin,
yeah.
whatever they say.
It's like,
Yeah.
wow, y'all are racist as shit. Y'all are just racist as fuck, aren't you? It's
It's amazing. There's no such thing as anti-racism, right? That's what they
yeah.
say.
Yeah, it's like what do they call it? Reverse racism.
Yeah.
It's like just sounds like racism with extra
Just
steps.
okay, we're two white dudes sitting here, so who knows? I want
Yeah.
to be on everybody's team. I want everyone to be happy and have rights and be able to do whatever they want to do as long as it doesn't affect other people's lives.
Another little tangent. I think if you're not on the side of people, if you're not
Mhm.
on the side of humanity, you're the fucking problem. Whatever it is that you stand for as like a lesser, like, or as a more minority group, that's a fucking problem.
Mhm.
I say this as a hypocrite because I'm a nationalist. I do think America has the best in theory. The actual America in reality that we live in is not the idealized
Mhm.
America that like that I have a lot of respect for.
Yeah,
But like the American ideal of like you have God-given rights that the government doesn't give you but recognizes is like I think that is better than any other system we've come up
it's
with.
still revolutionary and
Yeah.
world breaking of what we've done, and it's something to be proud of. Like people out there burning the flag or stepping on it for this, that, or the other. I honestly don't care if that's a form of protest. Personally, like we'll make more cool. I
Mm-hmm.
just think that you should be still patriotic and want this country to succeed. And I get being mad at it, but saying like I hate this country is not an answer. What are you going to do about it?
Yeah.
Let's do something about it.
Yep.
Let's not just keep beating a dead horse. What do we want to do about
Yeah. I have some ideas about it.
it? Don't we all, right?
Yeah.
That's for the people who won that
Yeah.
high school popularity contest to figure out, I guess.
Before I let you go, I'm just gonna kind of rapid fire some more philosophical stuff
All
at you.
right.
Um, we so I it's okay that you don't know what the Methodist doctrine is. So I'm going to ask you specifically, do you have any ideas about what happens after we die? Does anything make more sense to you than anything else?
You know,
No one knows,
no one
right?
knows. I mean, everyone kind of hopes there's something, right? You don't just want
Yeah.
there to be nothing. That's scarier than anything. I feel like that's why the afterlife was brought upon us, is to give us hope and something to live for. But there could be something. I don't know. It could just be just a feeling of greatness, and you could just feel like a star. You could
Hmm.
like not, you know how those things are, people in the old times would say all of our dead ancestors are up there and they're shining down on us. It could feel like not literally being a star, but we could just be filled with power. I don't envision us living in like this pure clear land made of pearls and bright and shiny, and we have neighborhoods and we still get our mail and we live with our families and can see them all the time. I don't think it's anything like that. I think it's something that we can't even comprehend. But hope, I guess it's something that we
Hmm.
can't even comprehend, and it's just a feeling of ultimate enlightenment and power. It might not even mean like we know the meaning of the universe or why we're here. It could just be we're now part of this amazing spiritual, we're part of God now. God is just a
Yeah.
collection of all of our souls, and now that our soul has come back to him, we're part of the continuation of creation.
It's just light, warmth,
Yeah.
and good. Yeah. I like that. I hope you're right. I hope that's at least one
Yeah.
outcome. Yeah.
Or we wake up and we're a caterpillar.
Would you still love
Crawling.
me if I was a
Is a
worm?
worm. I get those memes from
No,
my
I'd
fiance all
stomp
the
on
time.
you.
Right? If you're a worm, I'm a worm. Right?
I want to be a sandworm like in Dune.
It's a big worm.
Shai Halud. I'm a big Dune head. Um, Do you think aliens have interacted with Earth at all? You used to ask people if they believe in aliens, but
Okay.
unanimously,
It's
it's a statistical impossibility for there not to be life out there. So,
um I think it's possible. Like I heard a lot of good theories about during the New Jersey drone thing, where now that we have the technology to have questionable aircrafts, it's easier for the alien drones to come down and blend in a little bit.
oh, interesting.
That was a
I
theory.
never heard that one.
Like the government and the official statement later on we learned was it was like some research drones and then hobbyists who were interested in what was going on. But who knows? I feel there's a lot of military people who've seen unexplained things and caught them on film. Um, Maybe they're walking around. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe they're hiding it. The best theory I can think of is that they have bases in the ocean. Not
Oh,
bases,
you're talking my language.
but like they're it like because like we've only discovered like 20% of the ocean or whatever it is. Like, they could be down there chilling in Atlantis and that's the home that they made for them while they're hanging out.
Yeah.
Or they just have a bunch of like drones down there that uses the water as power and that's how they operate all the time. I don't know.
There's a lot of interesting
If
stuff
they're
about
on
that.
Earth and they're hiding, that's where I think they would be. Is in
What's that called? Agartha, the city at the center of the earth. Like, there's a lot of interesting. That's a whole thing.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's that's kind of where I'm at is in the oceans and
Yeah.
maybe on the moon.
Moon. Yeah.
We know the moon's hollow because they shot a thing and
Hollow moon.
yeah, so it
Hmm.
echoes. Like there's
Okay.
crazy echoes. Uh, we're able to detect that like they know that the moon is largely hollow, which is interesting.
That isn't it. It kind of makes sense if you think about that. It was like a chunk. If, however, it got up there. I don't know if there was an official theory, but it's like an asteroid hit us and part of the Earth turned into the moon, or just more solar dust when everything was made turned into the moon. But it makes sense if it was like chunks that popped
Yeah.
off and they just kind of like started spiraling and formed this mass, and there's like craters and things inside
Hmm.
of it.
I've also heard that the surface of the moon, um, that those minerals are from deeper in than like the top layer of the moon used to be on the inside, which implies if you're a schizophrenic drilling, or if you're rational, like meteors hitting it.
Impacts, yeah.
Yeah.
That would
So
make the most
that
sense,
would make the most sense.
given all the
It's not
craters.
as fun
Yeah,
as
like in
it
the
got
early
drilled.
days before when all the meteors were like zooming around. That would make the most
There's
sense.
also something weird about the moon that nothing that large orbits as closely around any other planet. Earth is an anomaly in the way that our moon is fucking huge and really close to us. Whereas like that's not been observed
Mhm.
anywhere else. So it like kind of looks like it was put there. Very
Yeah,
interesting.
I don't know about that. I think like, not being a Neil deGrasse Tyson or anything like that, I would say it would have to do with our specific like gravity and atmosphere and our size. And then if you look at like Saturn, how it has like, or Jupiter, I think Saturn has moons too. What are other planets that are larger than us that have moons? They're like
Mm,
way further out because the
yeah.
orbits are able to be larger. So I
Oh,
think
good
there's
point.
there's probably some physics that is like our
Sure.
mass related to gravity and atmosphere makes sense that we can hold a larger object closer, whereas another planet with not as much gravity or atmosphere can only hold like smaller objects at a further distance. I don't know.
Yeah.
Again, not a physicist or
Yeah.
anything or whatever it is.
Bit
Astro scientist.
Ben Goldberg, expert on
Yeah,
gravity.
right.
Anything you say is
Apple
fact.
falls, hits ground, right?
Let's see. What else? What else? Do you have any ghost stories? And I kind of gave you my what I mean by that earlier. Like, have you ever seen something? that was like, or experienced something that was like an anomaly that you can't rationalize?
I don't think I have any crazy stories outside of other people who walk down the street and the street lights turned off, and that's happened to them multiple times. Um, I never had a ghosting. Well, that might not be true. One time, I used to have epilepsy when I was younger,
Mhm.
and so I've had vivid dreams, so this could have just been a dream or something. But when I was younger, I liked to sleep with a blanket over my head because I was scared of vampires and I didn't want them to suck my blood during the night. And so I sleep with a blanket. And I remember one night I woke up in the middle of the night and I remember pulling the blanket just like off the front of my face. And I remember all I could see was an eyeball. And I just threw it like someone's eye looking at me. And I threw the blanket back over my face because that's where it's safe. And I hid. So of all the weird, unexplainable things, that would be it. But also I could see that as being one of my weird epilepsy dreams.
Do you know Leighton from Deborah?
I do know that, yeah.
Next time you see Leighton, ask him because Leighton is like a very logical guy.
Mhm.
He has, I won't tell his story, but he has my favorite weird
Mhm.
fucking story. And it's especially because he is such a like rational guy. Um, those stories always mean more to me
Mhm.
when they're not like a woo-woo person like me
Yeah.
and they're like not into that kind of stuff. Those are always the most interesting stories to
Mhm.
me because I'm like, he's just like, yeah, I have no idea what to make of that. But
Yeah.
that's my experience, you know?
I mean, and you get that sometimes. Sometimes things happen without explanation.
Yeah.
And you got some people take that as like a phenomenon, and some people take that as something that happened without explanation.
Some closing words from Hunter S. Thompson. I learned a long time ago that reality is far stranger than anyone's imagination. That's just so true.
Oh yeah.
I was talking to a friend of mine about Game of Thrones, which I'm really into Song of Ice and Fire. He's
Mhm.
not, and I like it for the reason he doesn't,
Mhm.
which is um, George like studied history and he's really tried to make like a realistic, believable story. But a good point my friend made is that sometimes I mean, like reality is really cliche and like would not make for a good story. So if you're
Mhm.
trying to be realistic, sometimes you need like fantastical, improbable things to
Mhm.
happen.
I would love to see the Vatican's vault of miracles.
Yeah, the Vatican, man, that's a whole
That's a
thing.
whole other episode.
Well, Ben,
But just on the miracles, that would be cool to
yeah,
see.
yeah, the Vatican, that's a whole thing. Yeah, maybe Trump will. I don't know.
It's ours now. The Vatican is now U.S. property.
We're taking
We're
the
taking
Vatican.
Vatican. It's gonna be beautiful.
We're taking Gaza,
We're gonna make the
Canada,
Vatican great again.
Mexico, and the Vatican. Ben, thanks so much for coming,
Of
dude.
course. Thank you for
Let's
having
do
me.
this again soon.
Definitely.
And Alice, catch Young Robot at the East Room on March 14th. I'll see you there.